we'll get started again. Thank you, Mr. Khan, for joining us.
Oh, look, it's my pleasure. I'm sorry. I truly apologise for having
You've come back, and Mr. Shoebridge, the left shoe, as Ms. Jackson called him, which is a good reference. I haven't heard that one before. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Welcome, Mr. Greenfield. You're already sworn, so you don't need to do it again with this committee. Would you like to start with a opening address?
Yeah, I'd just start with, as I did yesterday out at Willow Grove, to remind everybody that the green ban that was placed 12 months ago on Willow Grove and St George's Terrace by the CFMEU and our members is still in place. And we would like the government, as we've requested, I think, on a number of occasions now over the last 12 to 14 months, to come and sit at the table with us and the community out in Western Sydney and come to a resolution that everyone's happy with and that people can live with, and it's a win-win for everybody.
Okay. Good questions?
Mr. Greenfield, it's been put to me this morning, after last night's coverage of the protests, that the government, these are from whistleblowers inside the government, say that the government's actually looking for, and they've got 3 lined up, 3 tiny contractors, non-unionized workforce with fewer than 10 employees that will find a way to get around your green ban. Are you aware of this, and is that possible?
I'm not aware of that. It's the first I've heard.
Yep.
I do know of the builders the government has gone out to for the project. I think off the top of my head there were around 6 or 7.
Oh,
it's down to 3.
Oh, I was told 3.
Yeah, okay. It's down to 3 now.
Okay.
And they are builders that have EBAs with us. Our members work for them. So, yeah, that is the first I've heard of that.
Okay, so the 3 that the government has narrowed it down, shortlisted, are unionised?
Yes, they
are unionised.
Yeah.
So, and are you confident that they'll adhere to the green ban?
Our members will. Our members will adhere to the green ban, as they've always done.
So is there scope for the government to use, I'm sorry, I'm going to use North American phrasing, scabs? There
is, but I think this has been highlighted.
Sorry.
You're right. This has been highlighted for the past 5 years, but from our part, probably the last 14 months, in such a way that many people know of the issues out there. I think they would find it very hard to go down that road and engage someone. We haven't just been talking to contractors that have an agreement with us and members. We've also been talking to other contractors as well about the importance of Willow Grove and St George's Terrace. So, yeah, I think they will find it hard.
Thank you.
Am I able to just ask, would you be able to, for the benefit of members and anyone watching on the webcast or reading this in Hansard, would you be able to define what the green ban actually is, and if there are any previous examples? I think there might have been one, from my memory, there was a surf club or something that... Yeah,
the last one we put on was out at Bondi Pavilion.
That's it, yeah.
With the surf club, and got behind that community out there. They approached us. We've had numerous over the years, obviously the Rocks, Centennial Park. There's a number of examples out there where, looking back now, people are very happy that they were achieved. And the community at Bondi were very happy that they achieved that out there to keep it to the benefit of everyone. The green ban was placed on, obviously we're a construction union, so it was placed on for the protection of Willow Grove and St George's Terrace, not for the museum not to go ahead. We agree that Western Sydney deserves a great museum. We say that through the green ban, Willow Grove should be retained, like the government has said they're going to retain St George's Terrace and factor it into the building and design it into the building. We say they can do the same and still have open spaces where Willow Grove sits around it, and retain Willow Grove in that position and still have a fantastic museum out there for the locals and for Western Sydney. To us, it's reprehensible to pull down a building like Willow Grove just to get a walkway. And that's all we're looking at here, to get a walkway through the middle of Parramatta down to the water, a direct walkway. That's why it's going. So from everything we've looked at, there is no reason why Willow Grove can't remain and still have open spaces There's open spaces at the back, behind the Plan Museum, behind Willow Grove. There's open spaces to both sides. There is no reason that we can see that it should remain.
Can I ask what the feedback so far and ongoing has been to the union from the Green Band, both from interactions with the community and from your members? What's the response been?
In regards to the Green Band, yep, I've been involved with the union in some form for probably 40 years, maybe 42 years. I have not seen a response to when the Green Band was placed in probably 20 years to the response we got of support for the Green Band on Willow Grove and St George's Terrace, and that has been ongoing. Every time we're out in the media talking, every time it comes up, we just get emails, calls. It doesn't stop, and people have taken it to heart, I think, and they do not see the point from all the discussions I've had. And again, yesterday out there, building a museum and bulldozing a building with heritage value that can be used as part of that development, and they just do not see, it just doesn't, they can't understand that. So.
I think the last time you were here, the proposal to relocate Willow Grove was very new. If I recall my timing correctly, it was possibly even the morning of the committee inquiry or something. The government had sort of proposed that. With some time to reflect on that, what is your response to both the sort of logistics, in a way, the practicalities with your construction background of actually physically relocating that building, but also is that then consistent with the Green Ban? Would that be something that, if it were possible to do, you would contemplate?
Well, not in regards to the feedback we've had from the community out there and the public contacting us. You can't really pull that building down and relocate it. It will not be the same building. It's a brick rendered building. You pull it apart, and out of the announcement on Friday, all we can see there's a commitment to give 12 months to assess where it's suitable. So what, are they going to pull it down, stack it somewhere and rebuild it in 12 months? You cannot rebuild a heritage building such as that. It will be a new building. So we say it should remain there as it stands.
What kind of, I mean, again, excuse my ignorance here, what kind of tools would you use to demolish in order to rebuild? I mean, obviously my vision of how you demolish a building, you know, is getting the wrecking ball through, and this is obviously not what you would do if you want to retain and rebuild. How do you do that?
With a heritage building such as this, to actually pull it apart, you have to pull it apart piece by piece. So you'd have workers in there by hand pulling it apart piece by piece, stacking it. And as I said, you can't do that. You can't remove render. What, do you tape it to the walls when you get to the other end? Do you sticky tape it, glue it? You can't do it. It will be a new building. It's a big job, and from what we've looked at, it will be financially better off for the government and the community out there to redesign the museum, to keep the building, than to pull it down and move it, because it's a big expense.
And so firstly, I just want to ask about the time of that, because I appreciate what you're saying. You would have to essentially do it by hand using handheld tools. You've obviously been to Willow Grove. How long would that element alone take? How long would it take to dismantle something like that?
I'd have a rough estimate. I'd say 8 to 12 months to do it properly, if not longer.
To do it properly, as in, you know, because they want to preserve and keep these materials.
And rebuild.
Yeah. And again, I'm just looking for a rough cost. Obviously, we asked this morning Mr. Simon Draper from Infrastructure New South Wales about the rough costs, and he refused to provide any. Obviously, we've seen figures in the newspaper, but again, relying on your expertise, how much would something like that cost?
From people we've spoken to that do that sort of work, it could be anywhere up to $25 million. So it is a large cost. And as I said a minute ago, we just don't see the point when it can be redesigned, the museum, to incorporate that building.
Mr. Greenfield, are there examples that we can point to of where you, in fact, you can redesign around? Are there other examples of that?
Yeah. It's happened with other buildings and can be done all over the country, all over the world. It's been done, and from what we've looked at with the community out there, it's a minimal redesign. From where Willow Grove sits on the property, a portion of Willow Grove, the back right, as you look at it, the back right-hand corner and back, I think is 50s, 60s. So even if that had to come down, but the heritage building was to remain there, it's not a big ask to redesign the building to do that. And the excuse I was given 6 or 7, 8 months ago from Infrastructure New South Wales in a meeting, it would take too long and it'd set it back a year to do that. But we're nearly a year down the track now. It could have been done.
And potentially it would take 8 to 12 months to do the deconstruction. I'm trying not to use the word demolition, but to do the deconstruction with the level of detail that would be required to then potentially rebuild. That could take 12 months in itself.
Mr. Greenfield, have you ever heard of a 2-storey rendered or stuccoed clay brick building being moved brick by brick, as opposed to the examples we had trotted out to us this morning where they're all actually stone buildings?
No, I haven't.
You haven't?
Sandstone blocks, yes, but not rendered. No. As I said earlier, I don't know if it is going to be the same building. As I said earlier, do you tape it to the building? Do you glue it to the building? It's gone. Once you pull it down, all the render's gone, everything's gone. So no, I haven't.
And those buildings too are not the way we build them these days. They're all tie brick buildings.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
They are.
It can't be the same.
Can I just ask, there was some slight confusion this morning about your meeting with the Minister. He initially claimed that you'd cancelled that meeting, but then to his credit, he came back and said that perhaps that's not entirely accurate. Do you have a recollection about what occurred?
Yes, I do. I was approached on behalf of Mr Harwin by KPMG to meet, and was happy to meet. I'd been asking to meet, and it kept putting back on me that he wouldn't meet without an agreed position, and that happened twice. And they cancelled the meeting, not me. I was happy to have the meeting and attend. I don't go into any meeting with a preconceived idea. We were going supposedly in for a discussion around all these issues, and they pulled the pin on it when I wouldn't come to an agreed position, and that was at the time agreed for it to be moved to North Parramatta. And
that was being the intermediary was KPMG, was it? Yeah. And so it still remains that you are open to a meeting with the Minister with all options on the table.
Most definitely. Yeah. Yes, most definitely. As we have been from day one, we're open to sit at the table and talk, and hopefully with the community as well. And Western Sydney, as I said, can achieve something great here and have a fantastic museum and a heritage house that's remained there for many years.
What, Mr. Greenfield, what representational discussions have you had from the Darren people on that site?
We've had a few discussions, and they have a lot of value in the trees. They're in the land itself out there, and as they say, to remove that house, you remove everything. It's the property, the house, the property, the trees, it's the lot to them, to that community out there. So, yeah, they are dead set against anything being removed from there.
Any more questions? No more questions?
Can I ask a question?
You got one?
This is probably my final question. So, Mr. Greenfield, what happens in circumstances like this? So are we just simply at a stalemate?
At the moment, it looks that way. We'd like to think Mr Harwin and the government will come at some point to the table to try and resolve this. We don't put, as I've said many times now, green bands on lightly. We don't throw them around like hotcakes. It's very in-depth before we look at it, before we put one on, which we did here. We were approached 2 or 3 times before we actually put the green band on. We'd like to think they will come to the table but it is a stalemate at the moment, and the only process from here is our members will come out to defend the property out there and to back the green ban up, because they do take it very seriously when we do put a green ban on. Just like the community take it very seriously out there, and they've stated they'll defend the building, we'll do the same.
And so I suppose just to be clear, because, you know, there are obviously some people in the construction industry who unfortunately are members of the union, and so if the government were to try and get some of those people to come, you know, say in the middle of the night at times when maybe they think people aren't paying attention, and they commenced the deconstruction of the building, what response would you have to that? Because again, we're not talking about a wrecking ball coming through and knocking it over very quickly. In fact, we're talking about quite a detailed taking apart. Were that to commence, what would be your response to that?
Our members would come out
and picket the site?
Picket around the site with the community.
Yep.
As I said, they've made it quite clear that's what they will do, and we'll support them and come out and support the green ban we'll put on to convince our members and anyone that attempts to pull that building down not to pull it down. Listen to the community out there. Unlike the government, they haven't listened to the submissions. I think by far from what we've seen are against it. They're not listening to the community out there. And once again, I just call on them to come and sit at the table with us and the community, have a discussion and try and resolve this for the better of Western Sydney and for the government, for everybody.
Okay. Any more questions? No, I think, okay, we've canvassed it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr.
Thanks very much for the time.
Thank you.